For being aware in the instant from this and other information, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
The partner of a man killed by his neighbor has said there was no hope for her loved one because police did not know the man was dangerous. Oskars Rancevs was acquitted of the murder of Martyn Smyth and of killing neighbor John Whyte due to severe mental illness. On Wednesday, a judge ordered him to be detained indefinitely at the State Hospital. Lady Ray called him at serious risk to the public. She said she had no option but to impose a compulsion order with a restriction order, meaning Rancevs will be held at the State Hospital Carstairs without limit of time. In the lead-up to the killings last year, a number of people expressed concerns about Rancevs after he behaved erratically. Former SHASH soldier Martyn Smyth's partner says the same thing should never be allowed to happen again. Mr. Smyth was 73 when he was battered to death outside his flat in Columba Court, Oban in October 2018. His neighbour Rancevs had started banging on his door at 1 o'clock. Mr. Smyth called the police, who came out and told Rancevs to go back inside his own flat. Heart attack. At 9:30 the following morning, Rancev, 32 at the time, was seen throwing rubbish at former soldier Mr. Smyth outside the flats and shouting at him. He then pushed Mr. Smyth 3 times on the chest until he fell. Rancevs continued to kick him on the head while he was down and then dragged him between 2 parked cars. He climbed onto the bonnet of one of the cars and jumped onto Mr. Smyth. The pensioner was pronounced dead in hospital. Another neighbor, 75-year-old John Whyte, had called 999 from his flat to report the attack after being struck by Rancevs too. Police did not realize he had died from a heart attack while making the call until hours later. It emerged that Rancevs' stepfather had called the local mental health team and police with concerns over his aggressive behavior 3 days before the deaths. Linda Boyle, Mr. Smyth's partner of 17 years, told BBC Reporting Scotland that lessons must be learned from this tragic case. Horrendous act of violence. She said, "I still can't believe it. That day feels like it happened just a few weeks ago. When I heard that Rancevs' stepfather had phoned the mental health staff and police because he was seriously concerned about him being a threat and dangerous, I just felt numb. When Martyn called the police, they hadn't been given that vital information and they just told him to go back inside and stop being a nuisance. There was no hope for Martyn in the following hours. I feel so angry that a horrendous act of violence was allowed to happen." She felt the alarm should have been raised when the report was made to police. She said, "I am so angry that this man's family had tried to do something and nothing had got through to the front line. If something had been done, this would not have happened. She hopes this will never happen to anyone else." She said, "That man did his best to call the right people and I am heartbroken it was not acted on. To lose somebody like this is just awful and is something you don't ever get over." From TV dancing star to seriously ill and capable of violence. Oskars Rancevs was a TV personality in his native Latvia, after appearing on Strictly style dancing shows. But he had a long history of serious mental illness and had even written a book on schizophrenia. He moved to the UK in 2015 and 2 years later spent time sectioned in a psychiatric hospital. By October 2018 he was unable to work. He was a patient of the local mental health team and his stepfather called them and local police to report his concerns. In court, a psychiatrist said he had bipolar affective disorder when he launched the attack on his 2 elderly neighbours after a row about rubbish. Assistant Chief Constable Alan Spears from Police Scotland said, "Our thoughts and sympathies remain with the families and friends of Mr. Smyth and Mr. Whyte." Following this incident, relevant guidance was updated to ensure any immediate concerns in relation to critically injured or gravely ill callers are highlighted to supervisors. The Police Investigations and Review Commissioner, PERC, has investigated the circumstances leading up to the deaths of Mr. Smyth and Mr. Whyte. As the PERC's report is still under consideration by the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, we are unable to comment further. The Crown Office told the BBC that a decision would be made on holding a fatal accident inquiry on the conclusion of the PERC investigation. Argyll and Bute Health and Social Care Partnership said it was a tragic event for the families concerned. A spokesman said, due to patient confidentiality, it would be inappropriate for us to comment on the specifics of any case. However, with any significant incident, we would carry out a detailed review of the issues surrounding the event to see if lessons can be learned and whether improvements need to be made to the systems and processes we have in place.